I get wary about, say, the government saying, okay, we know this is a problem. We know why it's a problem. So we're going to play hardball. There's obviously leverage. They're making a lot of money from this. This is a huge app that can grow. We're going to require it to run on US servers, or maybe we're going to require them to sell the business unit, whatever it may be. I do get a little wary about kind of letting the government decide, because this one to me seems pretty obvious that like there's some, terrible use cases that the CCP could use it for. And even just, kind of outsourcing children's, growth, via the algorithm. But what happens is there's one that's a little less obvious, or even a lot less obvious. Like, do we really let the government decide that, an app that we really like, that maybe it's based in Germany and not China? Do we let them decide that?
Okay, great point, because the answer to that is also no.
Okay.
Because did you see the piece Glenn Greenwald put out today? Actually, it was very timely. He like released it today, and I was like, oh, thank God, because I
consume so much content.
Because I have a problem.
I got an opposite take from this.
Oh my God!
All right, tell me.
So I'm glad you went there, because what our government wants us to say is like, hey, the Chinese are bad. Don't give them TikTok. Give it to us, or put it in an American company. And like Glenn put out this piece, and he was basically like, the sort of security arm of the U.S. government, they're trying to control they want to control big tech, not because like they're trying to protect us, because like there's this thing is like, we don't want you to consume this Chinese propaganda because it's bad for you. And it's like, no, we don't want you to consume this Chinese propaganda because we want to feed you our own propaganda.
Yes.
Right. So Glenn put out this very tangible example, right? Where like, and he talked about what you talked about, where there's this push where, and this is the kind of tinfoil hat thing that the US lawmakers are saying, we're going to ban TikTok, but it's actually a strong arm tactic to get them to store all the data under Oracle and to create this new government arm that is a quote unquote content moderation arm of TikTok. And the goal isn't to like move TikTok to Facebook. It's to strong arm them into like letting the quote unquote content moderation live under this government control entity. And then like Glenn put out this like piece where he was criticizing Zelenskyy, right? And he was simply putting out a piece where he was like, hey, here's how the media used to cover Vladimir Zelenskyy, Ukraine, right? Before the Russian invasion. And they had all these articles and like videos about, do you remember the Panama Papers? And yeah. People have forgotten this, but there was a thing in the Pandora Papers like connecting Zelenskyy, he's allegedly like an anti-oligarch person. When those papers were released, it showed that like he had received like 40 million in payments from like some Russian oligarchs and had like these weird ownerships and he was clearly getting funneled money from Russian oligarchs. But as soon as the Russian war started, that was gone. And Greenwald put out a video saying like, hey, here's how you used to cover Zelenskyy. Here's how you do now. That video stayed up on Facebook. It stayed up on Instagram. It stayed up on Twitter. It was banned on TikTok. And his account was threatened to be taken down for misinformation. And like his thesis is basically like, they're trying to like push the Chinese out, not to protect you, but because they want to take control of the information. And this is ironic in a way, because they sort of told us that the Russians are trying to like formulate our view of the world, but in reality, they're just trying to push the Russians out so that they can control all of the big tech and shape the narrative.